Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today for this session on how to have a great companionship phone call. My name's Beth from the On Hand team. We've also got Grace and Emily here as well.
Hey guys.
Hello.
So we understand that making that first call for your first volunteering mission can be daunting, but hopefully after going through this session today, you're going to see how much of a positive impact they can have and how they can absolutely make a world of difference. And we want you to feel supported as a volunteer when you're carrying out your volunteering mission. So today we're going to run through why do it, the impact on our well-being, preparing for your first call, some top tips on how to have a great call, what to do if things get emotional, and at the end we'll have some time for sharing our experiences as well. So firstly, the why bother making one of these companionship phone calls? So firstly, we want to focus on the person that you'll be calling. And we've got a couple of facts and statistics here that just highlight the importance of building up connections with people who are suffering from loneliness and isolation. So 500,000 older people go at least 5 or 6 days a week without seeing or speaking to anyone at all. And during this time of increased physical distance, regular phone calls can provide a great opportunity for social connections and friendship. And here we've got a lovely quote from one of the older adults that we have been helping, Robert. He said, "Such a relief to get help at this time of year. Thank you so much for calling. I really appreciate it." And for yourself as a volunteer. So we just think it's an amazing way to make new connections, and a meaningful way to pass time while we've all got a lot more free time on our hands. And 55% of respondents in a survey by the Benison Strategy Group said that the coronavirus has affected their mental health, and 94% of people who volunteered said they improved their mood. Here we've just got a few notes from some of our volunteers on their companionship phone calls and some feedback on them. So here we've got a quote from Ian. He said, "Despite him saying he keeps himself mostly keeps himself to himself, he was great company and had a wicked sense of humour. Really interesting man. I've arranged a call to call him again on Monday next week as we got on so well." Donna talking about her calls with Ernie. "My calls with Ernie are going great. We chat for hours and have so much in common. We always have a good laugh and talk about anything and everything." Ross, on one of his companionship phone calls, had a lovely chat with lovely chat last night. The lady was 106 years old and originally from Guyana. We mainly spoke about travel. She'd been everywhere, so I left the conversation with a list of new places to go. Would highly recommend doing the calls for anyone. And Beth said to us, "I'm really enjoying doing it after a day full of phone calls. Just yesterday, I said to my partner, if I could afford to do this full time, I would." So now just focusing on who you'll be calling. So when you pick up one of these companionship phone calls, it's quite likely that the person you're calling is going to be an older adult. So we don't actually have any age limit on who we help, but the majority of individuals getting help in the On Hand app are older adults. So therefore, they may be forgetful. Sometimes they may have forgotten about On Hand and who we are. So just a reminder that they may be a little bit forgetful. They may be hard of hearing. So just a reminder to speak loudly and clearly when you're on the phone. You could be calling someone from near or far. So we help people all over the UK. So you could be calling someone super close to you or someone on the other side of the country, which we think is rather lovely. And also just something to consider, that some of the people you're calling may be on the app to receive these companionship phone calls because they're feeling lonely and isolated. So they may be feeling a little bit down in the dumps as well. But I just wanted to quickly hand over to Grace, who's head of customer service, just to talk a little bit more around our onboarding process for the individuals that are on the On Hand app to get help.
Sure. So yeah, just following on from Beth mentioned previously, a lot of the people that do get the companionship calls are older adults. So we get referrals through from a number of different sort of charities and organisations, including the British Red Cross and Age UK. And they basically, you know, give us the details of people that they could feel could do with a hand with just chatting to someone really friendly, basically. So we thought it'd be useful to sort of explain what process they go through from sort of getting the referral into coming onto the app. So we always have an introductory call with every requester before their request goes live on the app. And this is for a number of reasons, but the most important one is to obviously ensure that they would like these calls to take place. And another one is to also answer any questions they might have and give them a brief overview of what to expect. In these introductory calls, we also like to try and find out a little bit more about them. We really love to see lovely connections being made between volunteers and requesters, and that can be sometimes that you get matched up with luck, and that also can be sometimes where if we put in on a request, if someone has a particular interest or a hobby that they've been doing recently or were doing, you know, when they were younger, and it really allows you to have some great talking points with them. Another thing to note as well from experience and feedback is sometimes the phone calls can be a quick 5-10 minute check-in. And that can just be if the person's not very chatty or they're not looking really for companionship, just maybe someone to check in on them and see how they are. So sometimes that phone calls can be a quick 5-10 minute check-in. How are you? You know, what's the weather like? What are you having for dinner? And then sometimes you'll hear conversations go on for 20, 30, 40 minutes plus. There's no right or wrong. And we do say that to our requesters as well. So, you know, in 1 week, they might not be feeling up for a long chat and maybe just want someone to say hello and, you know, ask what they're up to that weekend. So I think that's pretty much it. We just give them a really brief overview of how things work. Their request will go on the app. Another thing to mention as well is that some requesters might be on the app for a little while before they get matched with someone. So this really ties into the fact that they may be a little bit forgetful and may have not remembered the conversation that we initially had. If you just remind them that you're calling from On Hand and you're a volunteer calling for a companionship call, hopefully they'll then remember, but if not, do just let us know and we can then have that follow-up call with them and remind them of our service, make sure that they're still interested in having those calls, and if they are, we can then get you matched up and we can then try again.
Amazing. Thanks so much for covering that, Grace. Yeah, really helpful. So now moving on to accepting one of these companionship phone call missions. So you can, if you're on the request tab on the app and you see one of these companionship phone calls, you can tap on it and it's going to let you know when the call's required or when they'd like to be called by. And as Grace mentioned, if we have it, we'll have a little bit of extra information here about the person and anything that we think would be important to know. So for example, here, this request says, Beth has been feeling isolated. She doesn't have her family around, so would appreciate a friendly chat with the volunteer. She loves nature, painting and travel. It also mentions that Beth has poor mobility, so it may take her a while to get to the phone. So please be patient. You might need to try calling a couple of times. So if it all sounds good to you, you can scroll down here and tap on accept request. And that's now going to become your mission to complete. And it will show up in your missions tab at the bottom of the app there. Now moving on to when to make the call. So if the person you're calling has a preference for a certain time of day, this will be shown on the app. So just here, it will either say, it might say required ASAP. So as Grace mentioned, that means that possibly they've been on the app for a little while and they're just ready for a call. And it will let you know whether that's required in, or their preference is the morning, where it will say AM, the middle of the day where it'll say noon, or the afternoon where it'll say PM. Or if they're happy to receive a call at any time of the day, it just won't have anything in brackets here. But if that's the case, we just encourage you to use your common sense and not call too early or too late in the day. You can make this call during working hours if that's part of your company's volunteering policy, or you could do this on your lunch break. But most importantly, we think just when you're feeling up to it, when you're ready to be making one of these calls, and that's going to be different for every person. Some people like to do this as they're strolling around on their lunch break, on their way home from work, whatever works best for you. And that brings us on to preparing for this call. So for your first call and for every call, you're going to want to make sure that you're in an area where you won't be interrupted and you're going to be able to hear the phone properly. Also, you're going to want to check if your phone is fully charged. You don't want your phone to be running out in the middle of a good gossip. And something else that we think is really helpful is to grab a notepad. So it's really helpful to make a few notes when you're during your first call. If it's your first call with someone, it's nice to jot down a few notes so that if you decide to call them back again, you've got something to refer back to as well. Try to relax and allow for a calm setting. So whether that is dimming the lights a little bit, getting yourself a cup of tea ready for the call, just try and allow for a calm setting and cut down on any distractions. So turn the TV off, turn the radio off, and just allow yourself the time and space to just fully focus on the conversation that you're having with that person. And when you're ready to make the call, you're just going to simply click on the number in the app to call. So we recommend using 141 to hide your number, and this will be added automatically when you dial through the app. However, we are aware that the 141 code doesn't actually work with 3 handsets and some other handsets as well. So this number will be 141 will be added automatically, but if it doesn't work with your handset, we recommend just jotting the phone number down and then heading over to your phone settings and hiding your number that way, and then you can just dial the number without 141. So now we're just going to run through some tips on how to have a great call. Firstly, some lines to get you started. So as Grace mentioned earlier, you'll want to start off by saying something along the lines of, "Hello, is that Beth? My name is Grace. I'm a volunteer with onHand." If they're not sure what onHand is, just remind them. Let's say you can say something like, "You've been referred to onHand, as I understand you'd like to have a chat with someone, and so would I." And if they're not sure what onHand is, let them know that it's a volunteering organisation and that they've been referred and that they've had a chat with us before. Don't be afraid to let them know that the radio or TV is too loud if you can't hear them. It's no good sort of trying to be polite. Just nip that in the bud and let them know if you're struggling to hear them. If you only have a certain amount of time that you're able to spend on the phone with this person, it's a really good idea to manage expectations early on. So say you're on your lunch break and you've only got half an hour, you could say something along the lines of, "I'll be able to chat with you until 2 p.m. Is that okay?" And finally, it's always good at the start of the call to ask if now is a good time, or if they prefer you to call back at a different time or perhaps on a different day. If they say, "Yes, actually, this isn't a very good time, I prefer it if you called me back tomorrow," then you can simply rearrange the call. So when you're on your mission here, you can scroll down and tap on rearrange mission. And here that's going to give you the chance to change the original date to the rearranged date. So you can pop the new date in here and then tap confirm. Also, if you call the person and perhaps they just don't really feel like having a chat this week, or they let you know that they're no longer wanting to receive these companionship phone calls, then you can cancel the mission. So similarly, if you scroll down, you can tap on cancel this mission and then let us know whether that is, so in that case that I just described, that would be Beth, the requester, cancelling the mission. So you tap on their name just here, and then you're able to give us a bit of information about why it's been cancelled, the reason for the cancellation. So here we just put, "Beth didn't fancy a chat this week." And similarly, if you can no longer complete the mission, then you can just tap me here and let us know that it's you cancelling the mission. And that way we can pop the request back on the app for someone else to pick up. Now moving on to some conversation topics that you can use. So these can be handy just to have in front of you, jotted down to refer to. It might be that the conversation just flows really naturally and you don't need any prompts, but these can be really useful to have in front of you just in case. So you could start off with something like, "How are you doing today? How are you feeling today? Is there anything else you need at the moment? So asking if they need any additional help with things like food shopping, getting their medication collected, post office runs, errands, all things that on-hand volunteers are also able to help out with. And we think it's really nice to always ask for a second time. So just ask, are you sure? And by asking for a second time, it lets the person know that you aren't just making small talk and asking for the sake of it. You really do care if they've got everything that they need, and it gives them that chance to let you know. Other questions you could ask are you getting about the house okay? Are you managing to make meals okay at the moment? What do you like to cook and eat? You could share with them things that you like to cook and eat too. Are you near a window? What can you see from the window? Asking someone to describe where they are at the moment and their surroundings around them. It's a really nice conversation starter to ask someone to describe the room they're in and what it's like and what they can see. But we've got a top tip in the corner here, not to be afraid of pauses and silences. So as we said, lots of these people may be feeling lonely and isolated, and it might take them some time to open up, especially if it's your first conversation that you're having with them. So really don't be afraid of these pauses and silences. As it may take people a while to open up, but when they do, we recommend just letting them do lots of the talking. Often that is the way that these conversations might go. Someone is just so pleased to have someone calling them to talk to them that they can just talk and talk and talk, and they'll talk your ear off. And we're there to listen. And then finishing up the call. So we think it's really nice to finish on a positive note. So perhaps if you can, sharing an encouraging or good news story that you've heard, perhaps about neighbourhoods pulling together and helping each other out, or maybe some other volunteering missions that you've completed and other ways that you've helped out in your local area. And it can be nice to finish up with the question, what are you going to do now? And ask them what they plan to do with the rest of their day. And then you can share what you're going to do with the rest of your day too. For example, I think I might have a cup of tea and read my book, or I've got to get back to work now. And if you've enjoyed the call, we really encourage you to let them know how much you've enjoyed the call. You could say something like, I've really enjoyed speaking with you today. And finally, when you say goodbye, we think it's really important to use the person's name when you say goodbye. So it might seem like a really small thing, but it can really mean a lot, having that personalized touch. So and finally, on finishing up, if you did enjoy your call and you'd like to speak with the person again, it's always best to ask at the end of the call if they would like that as well. And then perhaps you can arrange a time to call the next week. When you tap mission completed here, it's going to give you the chance to pop in how long you've been on the phone for and when it was completed. So if it was completed just now, or perhaps you completed it a bit earlier, a couple of days ago, and you're just entering it on the app, and it will give you the chance to update the date on there. And it will also ask you if you'd like to book in for that repeat mission. So if you would, you can tap yes, sign me up. And if not, you can say no, not right now. So there's no pressure to do this. You don't have to book in for the repeat mission, but we do really think it's lovely. If you've enjoyed chatting with someone, we think it's lovely to give that another go and try and build up that friendship too. So moving on to the emotional bit. So sometimes on these calls, things can get emotional. And now we're just going to run through some tips from Independent Age on how to deal with these conversations if they do get emotional. They got some amazing guidance on this. So the first one is that listening is key. We're absolutely there to listen to this person, whatever they need to talk to us about. And the second is to let them cry. So if someone cries when they're on the phone to you, they are sharing a vulnerable moment with you. So we think it's really important to allow them to express what needs to be expressed without trying to tell them how to feel. Try to avoid telling them to stop crying, or that what they're crying about isn't worth their tears, because emotions are always better when vented than being stored inside. The next is to not immediately jump to creating solutions. So if the person is crying and upset about a situation, don't try to immediately solve the problem for them. It's more important for you to do less of the talking and more of the listening. Their crying is a way for them to express their emotions. So just let them do that without interfering. Don't try to turn the conversation instantly positive. So it's a natural tendency for us to want to try and help the person feel better by having them look at the positive side. However, if you do that, they may feel like you're glossing over what's wrong, and they may feel that their feelings aren't important. I can definitely really relate to this when you're just trying to vent to a friend, and you don't need them to instantly solve your problem or try and make you feel better. You just want to feel listened to. Next is to ask what they need. So don't assume that you know what they want. Asking what they need puts the other person in control and gives you the opportunity to listen to them and respond. Whatever they need whatever they need, respect what they say. And the final one, which can be really difficult, and we understand that, is to acknowledge your helplessness in the situation. So, for example, you could say something like, "I'm so sorry you're going through this. I don't really know what to say to make it better, and I know no words really could, but I want you to know that I'm here for you right now." So just understanding that many of these people may have some issues that we simply can't help with just with a phone call, but just being there to listen to them is enough at that moment in time, and just acknowledging that's what you can do and that's what you're there to do. So lastly, I just want to say that we want you to know that you are so awesome, and it takes so much strength to be a great volunteer and to get through some of these difficult phone calls. And just want to let you know that we are absolutely here to help. So if you do have a difficult phone call, or someone mentions something on one of these calls that you want to flag to us and give us feedback on, we would love to hear from you. We're really, really responsive on our chat in the app. So if you tap on support in the corner here, that's going to bring up our in-app chat. And Grace and her team are on the other end of this and are really responsive on there, and love to hear from volunteers. Alternatively, if it's sort of an emergency, you want to get in touch with us really quickly, you can give us a call on our landline number just here. And actually, maybe Grace, if I can, could I hand back over to you just to talk a little bit about what happens when we receive these bits of feedback from volunteers?
Sure, of course. So as Beth said, we are very, very responsive in our in-app chat. Obviously, if it's an emergency and you would rather speak to someone straight away, then please do feel free to give us a call. But yeah, as I said, we're very responsive in-app chat. So what we do is the first thing we do is we take the request off the app straight away. This isn't permanent. This is just to ensure that we are processing it straight away and that maybe no other volunteers match up, just until we've looked into exactly what's happened and how else we can help. So our first thing that we do is we also provide reassurance to you, and we just make sure you are okay, and we can help provide any additional support that you may need. Then we would then speak to the referrer. So as I mentioned before, we get referrals through organisations and charities such as the British Red Cross and Age UK. So they are our first point of call. We will go back to them and we will make them aware of the situation. And where possible, where we're able to, we will also contact the requester straight away, obviously see exactly what's happened, and then take it from there and take appropriate steps to ensure that they are getting all the support they need.
Lovely, thanks, Grace. So yeah, just want to sort of reiterate again that if the person you're speaking to does get upset, it's very likely not because of you. So just want to remind you that these things do happen, and a lot of people are feeling the effects of a really rough 18 months, year and a half now, a really, really tough time. So we just want you to know that you are awesome, and it takes a lot of strength to get through these, and we never want anyone to have a bad experience, but sometimes it does happen, and we're here to help if it does. So thanks so much for listening. We would love to hear any feedback from this. If you have any feedback or any experiences you want to share with us, we'd really love for you to get in touch. And just wondering, I know, Emily, maybe you've got an experience that you'd like to share?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Beth. So I really loved your slide on tips to introduce yourself as a volunteer and also your talking points. I've definitely been in the situation, I think one slide up, Beth, is on introducing yourself, and sometimes the person you're calling has forgotten, and it could be a little bit awkward, like, who are you, why are you calling me? But I really like this tip. Remind them that they have been referred because we know that they would really appreciate a friendly chat with someone, and so would you as the volunteer. So it's not about them. You would actually really like to chat to them as well. So I know that can be the first hurdle to introduce yourself. So bear that in mind, don't take it to heart, and just go for it. And I've also been in this situation with somebody else I called where, the TV was blaring in the background. I think it's the case that a lot of the time for older adults, it's a sad fact that probably the TV is sometimes their main bit of companionship and what they do. So don't feel afraid to say, hey, could you turn the TV down so I can hear you better. And I also wanted to share my experience about feeding back what I've learned and what I've been told by a requester back to the on-hand team. So I was doing a companionship call with a lady who mentioned that her shower was broken, and I think she just wanted to have a bit of a rant, so I was that listening ear for her, but I actually fed that back to the team at onHand via the instant chat feature, who were able to feed it back to her referrer, the council. And then next time I spoke to that person, she had heard from the council and they were going to come and send someone round to help fix her shower. So that made me feel really good that I had potentially helped solve her problem. So I got that feel good feeling.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks, Emily. So as we said, it's really important that volunteers understand that, there are maybe some problems that you won't be able to solve as a volunteer, but feeding that information back to us is so key in making sure that we can get them the right help, maybe signpost them to the right organisation and get in touch with their referrer and make sure they get the help they need. So thanks again for listening and for being here. And as I said, we'd absolutely love to hear from you if you've got any feedback or if you've got any questions. Thanks, everyone.